After a life-changing car accident left me in the hospital, my family's photos poured in like a torrent of memories washed in nostalgia. I still remember the soft click of the camera, the laughter that echoed, the warmth of their smiles captured forever. But now? It all felt haunting. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I lay there, machines beeping a steady rhythm stark against the chaos that had become my life. My body was heavy, like concrete. Each pulse of pain radiated, reminding me I was alive, yet trapped. Every inch of me screamed, but nothing was louder than the silence in the room. Then, the photos began to arrive. They came in bundles, like unopened letters from a past I could barely recognize. My mom's voice trembled as she held the first one up. "Look at this one, sweetheart." Her eyes sparkled with tears, but there was something else, a shadow lurking behind her smile. I tried to reach for the photo, but my hands wouldn't obey. My sister was there too, crumpled on the chair. The dried tears on her cheeks glistened under the harsh fluorescent lights. Every glance she cast at me was full of fear, like a heart trying desperately not to shatter. "Just breathe," she whispered, the words barely making it past her quivering lips. But how could I breathe when the air felt thick and suffocating? Each photograph was a story, but dark secrets clung to them. In one, my dad was caught mid-laugh, but a shadow loomed behind him, a dark figure just out of focus. In another, my sister and I posed with our dog, but a chilling mist swirled above us like something unnatural. What was happening? Why did this feel like a waking nightmare? Memories clawed at me, each one sharper than the last. I could almost hear the whispers of the past, the echoes of those who had come before me. What if there was something more to this accident? What if I wasn't the only one affected? The tension thickened. A nurse entered, and her expression shifted from professional to concerned. "Everything okay in here?" she asked, but the way she glanced at the photos told me she already felt the weight. I could hear my heartbeat racing, long and erratic. What was she hiding? My mind raced as I wondered if she knew. If my family was hiding something from me. Each moment stretched, pulling tighter around my chest. I felt trapped on this bed, a prisoner of my own body, surrounded by mystery and unanswered questions. That I caught my mom's eye, her gaze darting away like a frightened animal, and suddenly, I realized my nightmare was far from over. I needed to know the truth. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days blurred into one another, each like the last a relentless cycle of pain and fleeting moments of clarity. I lay there, a fractured marionette, my strings clipped and moments of life reduced to the dull beeping of machines. The photos that invaded my room, a gallery of memories, continued to haunt me, twisting and turning in my mind like a storm. Every day, a nurse would come in, her kind eyes infused with empathy, yet burdened with something unsaid. I had begun to notice small gestures, the way she lingered, just a heartbeat longer, when adjusting my sheets, or how she sidled closer when my family would visit, as if sharing a secret only she understood. I could see it in the way her brows knitted together, the shadows flickering across her face when my mom would turn her gaze away from me, as if the pain of truth was too heavy to hold. The once comforting presence of family began to feel suffocating. Their love was loud, but layered within it was an unspoken fear, a dread that gnawed at them. Each time they spoke, it was riddled with hesitation, like they were dancing around something painful. I found myself wishing for the familiar sizzle of laughter, the lightness that once existed, but it had succumbed to the weight of hidden truths. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the walls a deep amber, I found it impossible to ignore the rending sensation in my chest any longer. I needed answers. I needed to confront the specters of our silence. My family piled in, as they did each evening, clutching the daily assortment of photos. But something was different now. The air crackled with anticipation and crackling nerves. "Please," I struggled, my voice a raspy whisper. Can we talk about what happened? I need to know that why Mother's head snapped up, her hands trembling around a faded photograph of my sister at her first dance recital. Sweetheart, we know. I could feel the urgency rising in me, fueled by the uncertainty that clawed at my insides. You've all been acting like I can't handle this. I'm not a child anymore. Something happened that day, and I won't let it go. Not again. Silence thrummed in the room, a taut string threatening to snap. My sister's eyes welled with tears, and my father, usually so stoic, shifted uncomfortably, almost like a child caught in a lie. Finally, the nurse stepped forward, her hands clasped tightly. Maybe if you want to talk about it, I could help. Her voice was a soft blanket, warm and inviting in the whirlwind of anxiety. I've seen families go through this. It's okay to be scared. That I felt a glimmer of hope flicker in the dark. Could this stranger, this gentle nurse, be the key to unraveling the truth I so desperately sought? But then I looked at my family, their faces twisted in grief and worry, and that light waned. I was scared, yes, but for them as well. That I just want the truth, I murmured, the words barely escaping my lips. My sides throbbed as I shifted in my bed, trying to find comfort in the oppressive silence. The mumbling began. Me mother, my sister, even my father, each voicing objections, cautioning against unearthing a hidden disaster. And yet, it was their hesitations that screamed the loudest. The room felt electric, charged with the weight of unsaid words. Then, to my shock, my sister suddenly spoke, her voice bold and piercing. It was more than just an accident. She cried out, her hands shaking as she wiped away the tears streaming down her cheeks. We can't pretend anymore. You have to know what really happened. The words hung in the air, a shocking revelation lingering like a fog. My heart raced, uncertainty surged through me. The spark of dread ignited what lay beneath this unveiling truth. Before I could respond, the nurse's phone buzzed, snapping me back to reality. Her eyes widened in an unexpected panic. I need to check on something, she stammered, rushing out of the room, leaving the door ajar. The silence that followed was deafening, pressing down like lead. My family exchanged looks filled with bewilderment and horror. I saw my mother's shoulders visibly sag as she absorbed my sister's words, while my father clenched his fists, uncertainty written all over his face. What more is there? I barely managed to breathe out, but my sister only shook her head, her eyes pleading, before the quiet swallowed us. Huli, a heavy silence bursting with unasked questions, and I found myself at the edge of a chasm, teetering on the brink of horrifying truths that lay just within reach. The moment stretched into eternity after my sister's explosive revelation, each breath I took feeling heavier than the last. My heart thundered in my chest, drowning out the sounds of the antiseptic hospital around me. A flicker of anguish snaked through my thoughts, twisting like barbed wire, gnawing on the edges of my awareness. What other truths were hidden away, locked inside my family's silence? My family seemed suspended in disbelief. They were like fragile glass dolls, poised on the brink of shattering. I noticed my sister's fingers tremble as they clutched the chair. Amidst her pain and frustration, there was something fierce within her, a fire that I yearned to understand. That I didn't mean for it to come out like that, she whispered, her voice cracking, the weight of her words hanging visibly in the air. But something in my heart sensed the gravity of her admission was far deeper than her words suggested. Our father took a step back, almost as if he was recoiling from her confession. I could see the muscles in his jaw tighten, the inner conflict played out on his face like a silent movie. Megan, you shouldn't say that, he urged, his voice trembling slightly as he grappled with the sincerity of her statement. You know it wasn't just an accident, she pressed, unapologetically cutting him off, raw honesty bursting forth. You could have told him. You all could have. Why are you trying to protect me from the truth? Why not let him know what really happened? I felt the room convulse with tension, the thread of fear woven tightly into each spoken word. What my sister had unleashed was a Pandora's box, and I was desperate to pry it open. What do you mean? I rasped, my throat dry and aching. What happened that day? Please. Tears streamed down Megan's cheeks, her resolve appearing to falter. She glanced at my mother, who stood like a statue, eyes cast downward. The vulnerability in her expression stirred something deep within me, a mix of sorrow and fury. I needed to know what had turned my family's laughter into this fragile silence. "I'll be right back," my mother finally managed, her voice small and fragile before turning to rush out of the room. She had clearly reached her breaking point, leaving my father and Megan in an unbearable limbo with me. "Dad, please, I deserve to know," I begged, turning desperately toward him. "Whatever it is, it can't be worse than this constant guessing." He looked down at the floor, his shoulders slumping, and for a moment, a veil of indecision covered his features. The vulnerability was unsettling, and I noted the shiver that ran through him. When he spoke, his voice was but a whisper. "You have no idea what you're asking for." Suddenly, the door swung open again, this time not to reveal my mother, but the same nurse who had briefly left moments earlier. Her presence seemed like an unexpected lifeline, a soft anchor in the current of tidal discussions. Her brow was furrowed, concern etched across her face. Without hesitation, she stepped beside my bed, but the heaviness of the moment was palpable. "Is everything okay?" she inquired, scanning the faces of my family, her eyes lingering on Megan and then reluctantly on my father. I heard shouting. Megan's breath hitched, the tension in the air almost suffocating. "No, we were just discussing the accident," she blurted, her voice choked with emotion. I wanted to scream, to push for more clarity, but the words lodged in my throat. My heart raced as I watched the nurse take a small step closer to my father, her voice lowering. "It might help, to share the truth rather than let it fester." A flicker of surprise crossed my father's face, and in that unfortunate moment, I saw a glimpse of something shame, perhaps? Or maybe a reflection of fear. I wondered who the nurse really was to my family, and why it seemed her words had a weight unmatched by my own. "That I can't," he finally uttered, a thread of desperation trailing the confession. "Not now. It's not the right time." The nurse's brows furrowed more deeply, compassion emerged in her eyes when they met mine. "You're not alone in this. It's okay to feel scared, but facing the truth can be liberating." Before I could grasp what she meant, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed outside the room. My mother re-entered, her expression frantic, and she clutched something in her hand-on old journal, worn and frayed with age. I found this," she breathed, her gaze darting around the room, unable to settle. "What is it?" I questioned, my heart pounding. The weight of her admission echoed, drowning out the distant beeps of the machines. I felt as if the room held its breath, waiting for the truth to unveil itself. "Everything," she said, nearly choking on the word. "Everything about that day. It was never just an accident." As she approached, I could see the raw emotion tearing at her features, and my heart leaped into my throat. With trembling hands, she opened the journal, and the first words leapt out at me, like shadows breaking free from chains. "On that day, we made choices that changed everything, and at that moment, standing on the precipice of clarity and uncertain horror, I realized we had only begun to scratch the surface of buried truths, but the deeper we delved, the darker this journey appeared to become." The pages of the journal rustled softly, like whispers from a distant past that had long been silenced. I leaned forward, desperate to decipher the faded ink, each word trembling with unspoken gravity as the air thickened around us. My mother's voice wavered as she read the first line aloud, and I could hear the quiver of her emotions, the undercurrents of pain weaving through the simple act of storytelling. "On that day, we made choices that changed everything," she echoed softly, the words tumbling into the silence between us. Each syllable felt like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples of anxious energy through my family. Megan's grip on my hand tightened, and I turned to see her face pale. The unspoken fear coursed between us, amplified by my father's stony silence. I could feel the tension snapping taut in the room like a fragile string about to break. "Choices?" I echoed, my voice breaking through the thick atmosphere. "What choices? What are you trying to say, Mom?" Mom didn't look up from the page, her fingers trembling as they traced the outline of the yellowed paper. "There were things we didn't want you to know. Things that would hurt you," she stammered, as if each word was a push against an invisible barrier. "What hurt could be worse than this?" I whispered fiercely, glancing back at my sister, seeking the fierce light that sparked in her eyes earlier. "Megan told us the truth, that it wasn't just an accident." "Please, how bad could it possibly be, please?" we just wanted to keep you safe, to protect you, my father interjected, his voice thick with urgency. But his frantic gaze told a different story, one of regret and ghosts long buried. Megan drew a sharp breath, anguish etched across her features as she interjected, but is that possible anymore? You all have kept secrets that I never wanted to own. Why didn't you share with me back then? Why hide from me all of this? I need to understand why it happened. It was hauntingly quiet. The distant beeping of machines and the muted footsteps of hospital staff felt like a world away. Why mother finally looked up, eyes shimmering with unshed tears, the kind that speak of a lifetime of pain. Because we thought we could protect you from the truth that drove us apart. From the guilt that tore us asunder. But the truth is, it's suffocating us, just tell us. Whatever it is, I can handle it, I urged. We need to break this silence. Megan pulled the journal closer, its yellowed pages holding the weight of our family's twilight struggles. Just read it, she said, her voice filled with determination despite her quivering hands. With trembling fingers, I turned the page, eyes scanning the dense scrawl. I need to know everything. As my family hovered close, I read aloud, unraveling the tapestry of lost moments. The car crash happened because we didn't see him. I felt the conviction in my gut when I saw the name written Tom Sullivan. It was familiar and yet foreign. The entry detailed memories of laughter and joy that now felt tainted by tragedy. He was our friend. A neighbor. A pang of confusion hit me, sharp and sudden. Memories of old Christmas gatherings, the man who had brought laughter into our lives during moments that now felt impossibly hollow. I glanced up, searching for understanding etched across the faces I loved, but instead, I found horror, betrayal, and ache. I remember him. I breathed, my mind racing. But you never told me what had happened? Why did his name lead to our pain? No, said my father, stepping forward, sudden fury flashing in his eyes. It's more complicated than you understand. We didn't plan for this. We didn't know how to handle the aftermath. You mean you left him to die? The words slipped out before reason took hold. A weight of accusation that hung there, unfinished. Megan shook her head violently, tears spilling down her cheeks. No. That's not fair. He wasn't the only one hurt that day. You have no idea. Frustration surging within me, I turned back to the journal. Then let me in. I'm ready to know. My heart raced as I continued to read, the ink painted a vivid tapestry of sorrow, guilt, and desperation. The narrative twisted, revealing a late-night decision to drive after a party choice made in haste, with no thought to the consequences lurking ahead. But then, abruptly, the pages flickered into a chapter about a secret pact between my parents, a vow taken after the accident reaching far deeper than I could fathom. There were silent agreements and unspoken words, shadows lurking in the promise that their silence was meant for protection but instead rooted us deeper into despair. Suddenly, a loud commotion echoed from the hall. I could see figures rushing toward our room, filters of cries followed by hurried footsteps. I looked up just in time to see another nurse burst through the door, her face pale, urgency echoing in her voice as she shouted, "We need to take immediate action. The situation is critical." Panic surged through the room, my heart pounding as if testing its own limits. "What's happening?" I asked, adrenaline surging as the room became chaotic. "We're losing him. He's crashing," shouted the nurse behind her as she gestured for a medical team. "Who?" I gasped. And as they pushed past my family, my vision locked onto the commotion beyond the threshold. The room spun. There was panic. My heart dropped. Could it be Megan, our family? I whispered shakily, fear coiling tightly around my chest. No, the journal fell from my hands, pages fluttering like autumn leaves lost in the wind as I stood, paralyzed by dread. The weight of our secrets, the truths we had yet to unveil, everything that lay in the shadows loomed ominously as I waited, breathless, for the next moment to unfold, knowing that everything we had thought to be true was about to shatter once and for all. The hospital room became a whirlwind of emotions, fear, confusion, and a suffocating sense of dread hung in the air. I struggled to make sense of the chaos unfolding before me, but the echo of that doctor's desperate cry pierced through the haze. "We're losing him." Who were they referring to? My heart raced, each heartbeat echoing in my ears as shadows swirled around me that I stumbled backward, the journal I had clutched in my grasp now a forgotten artifact of our family's hidden pain. Megan stood frozen, raw vulnerability etched into her features as we exchanged terrified glances, the weight of our past and the uncertainty of our future pressing down upon us. My parents seemed a world away, caught somewhere between the now and the past, their faces drawn tight with anguish and regret. With frantic gestures, the medical team bustled in and out, their movements sharp and precise. "Please, just tell us what's happening," Megan cried at one of the nurses, her voice a crescendo rising above the sterile chaos. "That I am sorry, but we can't discuss that right now," the nurse replied, urgency taut in her voice as she pushed past, armed with a sense of purpose born from experience. I could feel the world shrinking, the walls of the room commencing a slow but relentless closing in. What if it's Dad?" I whispered, the thought crashing against my mind like a tidal wave, unbidden and terrifying. "No, it can't be him," Megan countered, her voice fierce yet trembling with disbelief. "There's no way. He needs to be okay." Determination battled against fear in her eyes, but the tremor in her hands told a different story. Suddenly, my father's voice broke through, a raw edge slicing into the confusion. It's your brother." I felt the pulse of my being stop, followed by a rush of blood that surged through me, drowning me in shock as I tried to process the revelation. "Brother? We don't have a brother," I shouted back, disbelief mingling with a rising panic. "Mom! You didn't say." "I didn't know. We didn't know." She was shaking her head, despair etched across her beautiful features, a mirror of my own internal chaos. "Please, just listen to me." The words tumbled out, raw and jagged. Circle after circle of my family's pain seemed to spiral further out, creating an echo chamber within my heart. The name of a brother, someone I had lived my entire life without. Who was he? Why didn't you tell us? That's just it. We lost him in the crash too. We didn't tell you because we were trying to save you from the pain of knowing. My mother's voice cracked, as if each syllable fled from her. Tom Sullivan didn't die alone. There was a child in the car. Megan's breath hitched in shock, and I felt the world drop away beneath me. Child? What don't we know? Why have you kept this from us? It was a different time, and we thought though protecting you was paramount, my father said, his voice thick with tears. But all we did was rob you of the right to know or to mourn. The air thickened with the weight of the unsaid. As the room began to quiet, machines beeping with a sterile urgency, footsteps retreating in an echo of fading hope, I felt a seed of anger and pain taking root within me. You kept a part of my life hidden, I breathed, stunned. You kept your child's memory in the shadows while we mourned our own grief. But we thought we were sparing you further heartache. You were so small. We wanted you to be free from the burdens he carried, the burdens we carried, my mother implored, desperation written across her face. Megan's eyes began to glisten with tears as she grasped my arm. Maybe we should have known, maybe we could have shared this together, as a family. The fractured truth hung above us, barely coherent amidst the flickering lights of the machines that surrounded my brother's unknown fate. Lost in the tumult, I barely registered the nurse re-entering the room, an air of solemnity draping over her like a shroud. "Please, we need to talk," she said, her voice steady but soft. "The situation is delicate. We have updates on Jeremy." My breath caught at the mention of the name Jeremy. It was a name I had never known, a brother I had never met. Would I be able to bear the weight of hearing my family's pain, or would the truth shatter me even more? I am ready. Whatever happens, I said, finding a flicker of resolve illuminating the darkness. But just then, the lights began to flicker ominously, and an alarm blared to life within the room, a wrenching sound that seemed almost sentient, echoing my desperation. "He's coding," the nurse cried as chaos erupted anew. Megan grabbed my hand, her grip an anchor to the very uncertainty that tethered us to our lives, and I felt a surge of adrenaline wash over me. We can't lose him. I can't be without him again. But beyond the chaos, I felt the thick presence of our family's secrets still lurking in the shadows. We were on the very edge of revelations that would shape us, hidden truths that could bond us tighter or tear us apart irrevocably. As I stood the Remy heart torn between the past and the present, I realized a choice lay ahead of us. Would we face it together, or allow the secrets to swallow us whole? And in that moment, as cries and shouts filled the air, I wondered if the choice before me would seal our fates forever. The room buzzed with frantic energy, a symphony of voices turning into a cacophony, drowning out the thoughts racing through my mind. I stood still amidst the chaos, my mind teetering on the precipice of turmoil and clarity. Megan's hand squeezed mine tightly, grounding me even as my senses flared with confusion and dread. He's coding. We need everyone to step back. The nurse's voice pierced the storm, and suddenly there was movement, medical personnel rushing past us, and my parents retreating to a corner amidst the turbulent sea of uncertainty. Their expressions were a mixture of fear and helplessness, emotions writ the moment they recognized the severity of our shared reality. Through the chaos, I couldn't take my eyes off the darkened figure of the boy they were trying to save, Jeremy. The name replayed in the depths of my fractured memory, conjuring a phantom of a brother whom I had never known but now yearned to save. The weight of this unresolved bond drew me closer, even as the fear of loss constricted my chest. How could they not tell us? I gasped to Megan, her eyes shining with unshed tears. The nearest walls felt as if they were compressing against us, amplifying an emotion I couldn't quite articulate. All these years, how could they hide the existence of someone we've lost? Maybe they thought they were protecting us, she replied, her voice barely a whisper. But we're adults now. We can handle the truth alongside our grief. The world spun around me, vectors of reality splintering and colliding. I felt sick, as anger flared deep within. The anger paradoxically became a shield against my heartbreaking worry. How was it possible that the family I thought I knew housed such immense secrets? Would this reveal more fractures than it healed? Your sister needs to step back. A voice ordered as the medical team shielded Jeremy from view, and for a moment, I saw him, the stillness of his form amidst the frantic efforts to revive him. My heart raced. He looked so small, as if he had been lost in a world too vast and cold. And suddenly, a flicker of a dream crossed my Minda childhood vision of a boy with tousled hair, and laughter echoing like distant music. Jeremy. The world snapped back into focus when another nurse approached us, this one her expression lingering somewhere between battle-worn and compassionate. Your presence here is overwhelming. We'll do everything we can, but I need you to stay calm. I shot back, the panic leaking through my stubborn resolve. How do you expect me to be calm when my brother Ishi's heart is weak? But there's hope, she interrupted softly but firmly, drawing me into a world muffled by despair. He needs you to believe in him, to support him from the outside. You're his family now, and if you want to be there after all of this, you must stay strong. That I glanced at Megan, her face pale but resolute. We can't give up on him, just like we couldn't give up on the truth. He deserves to know he is loved, I murmured, my voice thick with unshed tears. Together, we can do this, Megan whispered, squeezing my hand again, and something inside me shifted. We were anchored to each other, binding together the threads of responsibility we shared toward the brother we had yet to embrace. Just then, a soft touch grazed my arm. It was my mother, her eyes brimming with guilt yet saturated with love. I'm so sorry. We thought we were making the right choice, but we failed to see the toll it would take on you both. It's time we do more than just apologize, I said through clenched teeth, my own heart wrestling against the tide of anguish. We needed to face the truth together, heal the past wounds even if that journey led us through the darkness. We need to be here when Jeremy wakes up, we need to tell him everything, she nodded fervently, her strength seeming to return at the thought. Yes, but only if he can make it through this. Unforeseen moments of hope bloomed like flowers amid the rubble of our sorrow, a collective acknowledgement that we could forge a way forward, whatever it entailed. Yet as the minutes rolled by, our family huddled together, a tight cluster of hearts strung tight against the threat of loss. An hour had slipped into a dismal gray, echoes of hope eerily mingling with the grating sound of alarms and distant cries until one last piercing beep silenced everything. He's stable, a doctor announced, his face weary but glowing with tempered relief. We've stabilized him for now, but we have a long road ahead. Relief washed over us, even as the breath of uncertainty felt thicker. I wanted to shout, to celebrate, yet, part of me could not shake the fear of what lay ahead. Is he conscious? Can we see him? I urged, desperate to bridge the gap of silence and disconnection that had haunted my childhood. That I end time. But right now, we need space to monitor him. The doctor tried to console me, his voice tempered with the uncertainty of what awaited us. In the periphery, I saw my parents' shoulders droop. My father ran a hand through his hair in a gesture of distress. We need to be ready for whatever he does. Remember, whatever comes, we'll face it together, Megan vowed, her spirit undaunted. But as we leaned into the fragile hope of Jeremy's recovery, a chilling whisper echoed in the corner of my mind. What if he remembered everything? Who would he choose to trust in his unsteady, fractured reality? With each passing second, it became clear our unraveling story was only just beginning. Choices lay ahead, darkening skies obscured by the shadows of our unspoken past. The weight of our secrets threatened to engulf us, but could we rise from the ashes as a family, or would the truth prove too heavy to bear? The sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air, an unwelcome reminder that I was trapped in the hospital. With every passing hour, the weight of uncertainty grew heavier on my chest, an anchor that threatened to drag us all into murky depths. I resisted the urge to count the seconds. My focus was the room where Jeremy lay, still shrouded from view, and the flickering hope that held me together. Megan and I stood side by side, hands intertwined like lifelines. Our eyes were glued to the blinking machines, each beep an unsettling reminder of Jeremy's fragile state. He's a fighter, Megan whispered, trying to keep our spirits buoyed. Yet, the tears that welled up in her eyes were a stark contrast to her hopeful tone. Our family huddled together in a small waiting area, the soft voices of familiar relatives fading in and out as I struggled to tether myself to sound reason. My parents were arranged on a battered couch, the lines of worry etching deeper on their faces as they whispered amongst themselves, their words punctuated by heavy sighs. I could feel their guilt lurking in the room like a phantom, a presence that seeped into the very fabric of the sterile waiting area. No amount of comforts exchanged or apologies spoken could heal the fractures that had grooved themselves into our family when they withheld the truth about Jeremy. Megan, a voice from behind broke the silence, and I turned to see an unfamiliar figure, a nurse whom I had yet to meet, her face flushed with urgency. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" Megan nodded and followed her toward the admin desk, leaving me momentarily alone in the whirling storm of conflicting emotions. My heart ached for Jeremy, for the years had been absent, and for the abyss of confusion that had swallowed my family whole. As I waited, I instinctively caught snippets of conversation around me. A little girl giggled somewhere nearby, her soft laughter slicing through the heavy air like a warm ray of sunshine. In that moment, I felt a flicker of warmth blossom in my heart, a reminder that however clouded the horizon, there were tiny moments of joy flourishing amidst grief. "Is everything okay?" I asked as Megan returned, shaking her head slightly, her expression heavy. The fear in her eyes was undeniable. "They had to administer another dose of medication," she said, her voice trembling. "They're worried about his response. It's going to be a longer wait, but he's stable, right?" I grasped at straws, desperate for reassurance. "He's stronger than anyone gives him credit for." Megan took a breath, and as if she were an unbroken soul tethered to hope, she said, "He has you now." That means something. Just as I was about to respond, the doctor emerged, his brows furrowed, the weight of his expression instantly drowning my fragile optimism. "I need you to prepare for the possibility that when Jeremy wakes up, he might not remember everything, or he may remember too much." "What do you mean?" The ice in my veins broke into an electric dread. "Memory can be unreliable during trauma," he explained, noting the urgency that danced in my chest. "He might hold on to fragments of his past that could be overwhelming." A bitter lump lodged in my throat as I thought about my brother waking up to memories locked in shadows, confused and alone. Would the bond we were trying to build withstand the storm of his recollections? "We need to be there for him, no matter what he remembers," the doctor nodded but paused. "I urge you to be ready for anything. Sometimes, the memories can be painful." As the reality of his words settled uneasily between us, the sound of a scuffle erupted down the hall, catching everyone's attention. An older gentleman was arguing with nursing staff, his voice punctuated with despair. I couldn't make out words, but the trembling of his hands and the anguish in his eyes spoke volumes about the loss he carried. "Incredible," Megan murmured softly. "Here we are, fearing the past, and he's living it. It makes you wonder." I followed her gaze, my heart aching for that man. "How do we even begin to process this?" The inevitability of pain, it's like it just keeps renewing itself around us. Yet, as I looked down the corridor, part of me wanted to reach out, to comfort him somehow. Just a simple gesture, a shared understanding, even if it was merely a nod. But the anxiety gripped me, freezing my limbs as I remained a spectator to the sorrow around me. With a heavy heart, my thoughts turned back to Jeremy. We cannot fall apart. He needs us, I declared resolutely to Megan, my voice stronger now. We owe him that. At that moment, the doctor returned and surprised us by inviting us to the intensive care unit where Jeremy rested. He's conscious, but his responses may not be what you expect. You'll have to be patient. We exchanged anxious glances, our hearts racing at the prospect of facing the sibling we never knew. Megan squeezed my hand tighter as we were led through the corridor, the fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow over the worry-stricken faces of families who shared our pain. As we entered the dimly lit room, the sounds of machines faded into a haunting symphony, and my breath caught in my throat. There he was, lying pale and fragile, yet undeniably him. Jeremy's eyes fluttered open, dazed, searching. Jeremy, I called softly, my voice laced with emotion. His gaze met mine, and in those fleeting seconds, I saw confusion cloud his eyes. Who? He began, his voice a faint whisper barely escaping the darkness that lingered in his mind, and just like that, the tempest of our reality swelled all at once. Would he recognize us? Would he know the warmth of a family that had waited so long to love him? The answer hung suspended in the air, calculated and precarious foretelling of revelations that could tear us apart or stitch back together the remnants of our shattered past. The room felt suffocating as I held Jeremy's gaze, panic gnawing at the edges of my resolve. His eyes darted between Megan and me, searching as if trying to piece together a puzzle with missing pieces. The weight of anticipation bore down on us both, and I struggled to breathe. Who are you? He repeated, his voice soft but hollow, as if it were escaping from a deep well of confusion. My heart shattered all over again at the sound. A million memories of laughter and shared secrets flashed before me, moments I cherished, now teetering on the brink of irrelevance. It's me, it's Caleb, I managed to whisper, my pulse racing. Your brother. We've been looking for you. He blinked, processing the words, but the recognition I desperately sought for remained elusive. My brother? Jeremy's brow furrowed as he struggled to grasp the reality surrounding him, the disarray of his memory weaving a barricade I couldn't penetrate. Megan stepped closer, her concern palpable. You're safe, Jeremy. We're here now. Just focus on us, okay? Her voice, usually laced with unwavering strength, trembled as she tried to bridge the chasm separating us. The beeping of the machines morphed into an ominous rhythm as Jeremy's expression shifted to one of anguish, a dim candle in the storm. Why does everything feel so broken? He whispered, turning his gaze toward the ceiling, as if searching for answers hidden in the sterile lights. Sometimes, it takes time to heal, I offered, desperately wishing I could provide him with solace. You've been through so much. Just take it one step at a time. He turned back to us, confusion still etched across his face. I can't remember. I can't remember anything. The weight of his despair reverberated through the room. It was a haunting refrain, one I felt deep in my bones. As his words hung heavy in the air, I felt my own fear swell. How could I assure him when I, too, was drowning in uncertainty? And what if those pieces of his past were suffocated by darkness, never to see the light? Megan, maybe, I hesitated, glancing at her, searching for a solution to our growing anxiety. Maybe we should tell him about the cartoons he loved, the music he listened to. Something he can hold on to. But before Megan could respond, a slight knock on the door broke the tension, and a nurse entered, her smile warm but contained. Excuse me, just a routine check. She moved deftly to Jeremy's side, her presence a brief oasis amid our rising tempests. How are we doing today? Feeling okay? Jeremy's voice faltered again, uncertainty flooding his features. I don't even know where I am. Let's not worry about that right now, the nurse replied gently. You're with family, people who care about you deeply. And that's a good start. As she tended to the machines, I felt a flicker of warmth surge through me. Even in the midst of our gloom, unexpected kindness illuminated the room like a ray of light piercing through heavy clouds. I glanced at Megan, seeing the same comforting sense of relief reflected in her eyes, but before I could soak in the moment, a nurse's shout echoed from the hallway, breaking through the bubble of intimacy we had tried to create. "We need help over here." The urgency in her voice shattered my fragile optimism. I exchanged taut glances with Megan, the air thickening with dread. It was an unwelcome reminder that we weren't the only ones wrestling with pain and uncertainty. Our grief was but a drop in an ocean swirling with countless stories and heartaches. "Caleb, stay with me," Jeremy mumbled, as if my presence alone was a buoy in a storm-tossed sea. His dependency wrapped around my heart like a vine, each word pulling me closer into his world of confusion. "I'm here, Jeremy." "Always," I promised, my voice quaking with the weight of his vulnerability, but as I spoke, a wave of voices from the hallway transcended into our room, the panic palpable. I turned to see a familiar face emerge, a doctor, panic etched on his features as he rushed toward the room, followed by a team of nurses, pushing a gurney. No, what's happening?" My heart raced faster as the atmosphere shifted. The doctor shouted a command I couldn't decipher as they spilled into the room like a torrent. "Megan, what do we do?" I turned to her, anxiety tightening my chest as the chaos unfolded around us. In a matter of moments, the sense of safety we felt in our tiny bubble burst, leaving us exposed to the whirlwind of fear and uncertainty once more, and then, as the medical team worked frantically, Jeremy's grip tightened around my hand, his fingers trembling with frightening intensity. "Caleb, please stay." "I can't, I don't want." His voice trailed off, leaving a raw wound in the atmosphere, an echo of his innermost dread that mirrored the clenching terror in my own heart. Before I could respond, his eyes widened in what looked like realization, or was it fear? He took a sharp breath and whispered, "If I don't remember, what happens to us?" At that moment, the stark fragility of our situation hit me like a blow, the uncertainty overwhelming. I had come to the hospital seeking reunion, only to confront the terrifying specter of loss threatening our relationship before it even had a chance to grow. Struggling to find the right words, I felt the weight of his question pulsing in the room, tangling with the chaos until it became a haunting invitation to confront the unknown. "Jeremy," my voice faltered as I grasped the chance to assure him, only to realize I didn't have an answer. But just as the abyss of despair threatened to swallow us whole, the nurse glanced back at me from her frantic activity, her voice steady amid the chaos. "Well, get through this." In that moment, I clung onto her words as if they were a lifeline thrown to me in turbulent waters. I could feel Jeremy's fingers tremble against my palm, the connection sparking a flicker of hope amid uncertainty, intertwining our fates irrevocably. But the question lingered, suffocating and unresolved. Was I ready for the consequences of whatever memories he might recover? Would our family ever be whole again? And just as I felt tethered to that fragment of hope, another overwhelming shout from down the hall snatched my focus away, the echoes of our reality shifting once again toward the unimaginable. The shifting shadows of uncertainty lurked as the frantic energy of the room pulsated around us. I could barely hear my own heartbeat over the cacophony of medical alarms and shouted commands. The nurse's words hung in the air, a fragile lifeline I desperately clung to, yet doubt gnawed at me. If they couldn't fix this? What if Jeremy was forever trapped in this fog of forgetfulness? "Jeremy, please." My voice trembled, thick with emotion. "We're going to get through this together. I promise." But even as the words left my mouth, I felt the sincerity of my intention meet the cold reality of my fear. The shadows of doubt stretched farther than I could fathom. The nurse was swiftly moving about, checking Jeremy's vitals, her brow furrowed in concentration. As she worked diligently, I leaned slightly closer to him, determined to keep him locked in the moment with me. I could feel his warmth, a tangible connection keeping my anxiety at bay. "I can't remember," he whispered again, his voice trembling. "What if I never do?" There was a haunting echo in his words, a chilling reminder of what was at stake. An unfamiliar chill snaked its way down my spine. "Well, figure it out," I replied, though the uncertainty burned at my throat like ash. I glanced toward Megan, who looked equally lost in her thoughts, her hands clenched tightly together as if bracing herself against the tide of emotion sweeping through us. Just then, the doctor, a stern-faced man with kind eyes, stepped forward, cutting through the torrent of feelings in my chest. "Jeremy, you've been in an accident." It's okay not to remember everything right now. Healing takes time, and we're going to help you. His soothing tone was a balm to both me and Jeremy, but a flicker of fear crossed my mind how much healing was truly possible. Would Jeremy ever emerge unscathed from the shadows that seemed to grow thicker around him with each passing moment? The doctor continued, "For now, the important thing is that you're safe, surrounded by people who love you. Focus on that." Jeremy looked back at me, his gaze searching, as if attempting to pull the threads of our past from the chaos. "You really love me?" His voice was small, frail. "Yes," I whispered, the word barely a breath. "I do. I've always loved you." There it was, an unyielding truth even amidst the fog. The memory of our connection reverberated in my heart, warm and bright. Yet I couldn't shake off the dread clawing at my mind. What if that love wasn't enough? What if it faded away? Just then, the lights above flickered, and the atmosphere shifted sharply, the sensation of something ominous hanging in the air. A rushing sound down the hallway drew my attention. A paramedic team, pumping a stretcher into the room, urgency clear in their movements. My breath hitched in my throat, panic cascading through me like a tidal wave. "Megan!" I gasped, clutching her arm tightly. "What is happening?" Her eyes widened, mirroring my fear, but before she could respond, the doctor turned, his expression shifting from attentive to alarmed. "Everyone, please step back," he commanded, his authoritative tone slicing through my panic. The commotion surrounded us, but I was only aware of Jeremy. His eyes widened with confusion and dread, his breathing quickening as alarms blared. "Caleb!" he exclaimed, a mix of fear and desperation flooding his voice. "I'm here, I'm right here," I rushed to assure him, but uncertainty gnawed at my heart as the reality of our situation enveloped us once more, tearing at the fragile thread that bound us. As the doctors worked tirelessly around the new patient, an unknown figure veiled by chaos, I felt something snap inside me. "This isn't fair," I shouted suddenly, the words bursting forth from the depths of my heartbreak. I felt Megan's startled gaze on me but barely registered it, consumed by emotion. "He's already lost so much. Can't you do something for him?" Before my voice cracked as I realized I was pleading for something I feared they wouldn't be able to provide. "That no one deserves this," I continued, my hands balling into fists, energy surging like wild electricity. "We each fight our battles, but who protects us when we're lost?" In that moment, amidst the chaos, a warmth spread through me, an unexpected surge of hope flickering like the dying embers of a fire. Maybe we wouldn't have to fight these battles alone. As my thoughts spiraled in and out of focus, the new patient cried out in agony, forcing me to glance sideways in horror. A wave of panic washed over me, and I turned back to Jeremy, half expecting his eyes to glaze over as another wave of confusion passed through him. Instead, to my shock, a brief moment of recognition flickered across his face, a spark igniting in the shadows. "Caleb," he whispered, almost as though recalling a buried memory, sending a jolt of electricity surging through me. The world around us fell away for a heartbeat, hope blossomed like a flower breaking through concrete. But just as quickly, Jeremy's expression twisted again, like it was covered with a thin veneer of fear. "What if I lose you, too?" In that instant, the realization gripped me. Conversation wasn't just about the memories lost to the winds of time, but the fear of love slipping away into the unknown depths. The walls of slow despair tightened around me, constricting like a vice, and yet despite it all, something deep within me felt as though we were teetering on the edge of a precipice of hope or despair, and the choice was ours alone. "That I won't let that happen," I promised fiercely, but the gravity of my vow lingered unsettlingly in the air. Would it be enough against the storms brewing at our feet? As the chaos erupted anew, a part of me sensed that the answers we sought were within reach. And with that fragile sense of hope flickering before me, I couldn't help but wonder, was Jeremy on the cusp of rediscovering not just his memories, but the essence of who we were? Or would he search for solace only to find it irretrievably lost? Before I could ponder any further, the doctor's voice cut through the tumult, once again a harbinger of our uncertainties yet to unfold. "We need to stabilize the situation here," but for the first time, I felt the weight of that unknown pressing in like a vice around my chest, fully realizing that whatever lay ahead could forever redefine the love we fought for amid the unrelenting chaos. And as we waded deeper into the tumult, the future hung precariously in the balance, ready to unravel at the seams. The night that followed was a relentless blur, filled with the stark contrast of chaos and stillness. I held Jeremy's hand, feeling the warmth seep through the trembling space between us. The medical team continued their hurried rhythm, each beep of the machines weaving a tapestry of worried hope and crushing dread. And while they fought tirelessly to stabilize him, I wrestled with the surge of emotions, the weight of family secrets, the agony of loss, and the fragile promise of connection. Megan, what if he doesn't remember us? I whispered, my voice echoing the uncertainty within. My sister stood beside me, her expression mirroring my fears, her fingers entwined with mine as if we were clinging to the same fragile thread that he will remember. He has to, she replied, though the tremor in her voice told me we both understood the grim possibility overshadowing our hopes. The fear of being forgotten was an abyss, dark and unfathomable. Throughout that night, the doctors worked diligently, but as dawn approached, the room remained a cocoon of tension. Jeremy lay suspended in a wave of uncertainty, his eyelids fluttering occasionally, hinting at a world lingering just beyond his reach. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the doctor returned and struck a chord of anxious hope. He's stabilized, but it may take time for him to fully regain consciousness, he informed us, his eyes scanning our concerned faces. You need to talk to him, remind him of who he is, who he can trust. That I nodded, felt the flicker of determination ignite within. I could hold on to that connection. We had always been a family strayed from each other, lost in pain, but the love we had yet to unravel remained at the core of who we were. As the morning light spilled through the hospital windows, illuminating the sterile room, I squeezed Jeremy's hand gently, willing him to feel my presence. I'm here, Jeremy, I said, my voice breaking, you're not alone. You have a family who loves you, who has been waiting for you to come back to us. Megan leaned closer, her voice trembling with emotion as she added, we've missed you so much. We need you, Jeremy. Please fight to remember. Our words wrapped around him like a fragile embrace, a flicker of familiarity in the haze that enveloped him. For the longest moment, time seemed to stand still. Life outside faded as I focused solely on the rhythmic cadence of his breathing. Would he truly break through the veil? Would he extract himself from the shadows? And then it happened. His fingers twitched in response to my warmth, and for the briefest moment, I caught a glimmer of consciousness reflected in his eyes. Caleb? He murmured, his voice barely a whisper, a haunting echo of the brother I yearned to know. Yes. I responded, my heart soaring. It's me. I'm right here. We've been waiting for you. His brow furrowed as if he was grasping at fragmented memories, strings of connection trying to tie themselves back together. Megan? He asked again, casting his gaze toward her. A flicker of recognition glimmered in the depths of his confusion, and I felt hope surge through the air. Why can't I remember? Well, help you. You're safe now, we promise to help you piece it all back, I said, willing my courage to shine brightly in the face of his uncertainty, and as I held his gaze, a softer hue of familiarity washed over his features, settling like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. It felt like finally standing on the precipice of acceptance, and before I could continue, the nurse entered the room, breaking the fragile moment. She was jovial, a reminder of the lightness I desperately needed amid the shadows. What's this? Is someone awake? She said cheerfully, bringing a fresh burst of energy into the space. Jeremy, you've got family here. It's time for some visitors. That I turned to Jeremy, watching the flicker of recognition play across his eyes. Something was beginning to shift within him. Maybe we were on the cusp of something powerful, a chance to heal as a family, not just as siblings but also bound by shared experiences and experience yet to come. Megan stepped forward, ready to bridge the gap entwined in our complicated histories. Just take your time, but remember, we're right here with you, she said. Family, he whispered, the word barely a breeze, but that small acknowledgement swelled within me like 1,000 fireflies catching light. We weren't just playing tug-o-war with memories, we were forging a new reality, one filled with understanding, love, and the beautiful intricacies that made us whole. Another nurse entered, and she glanced at us with a knowing smile. I believe your brother needs to hear some stories. Any favorite memories you have that might jog his mind? I looked back at Jeremy, his gaze fixed on the floor as he seemed to search for something inside himself. Suddenly, a memory flickered to life. Remember the orange tree in our backyard? I asked, hoping to coax a smile from him. You loved climbing it and picking the fruit. Mom would make the best juice. A small grin broke through the haze on Jeremy's lips. I do remember the orange juice, yes. And you always got it all over yourself. I chuckled, my heart racing as he started to breathe a little calmer. You even tried to juggle them once. His eyes sparked with a faint glimmer of laughter, echoing the ripple of our shared history. You were terrible. Megan joined in, a delighted laugh breaking through the tension. And we all ended up in a sticky mess. The sound of our laughter spilled into the room, brightening the weight of unspoken sorrow hovering in the air. Sticky messes, Jeremy murmured, bringing a flicker of light to his eyes. I like that. I could see him melting slowly into the warmth of our recollections, this shared space of love, echoing back to when we were innocent and untouched by grief. Yes. You see? We're all here, better together, I continued, anchoring my hope into those beautiful moments. I saw his guards begin to lower, our stolen laughter harmonizing into something greater than our fragmented past. Jeremy nodded, his chin lifting as a small smile brightened the corners of his mouth. Caleb, Megan, I missed this, he said softly, as if shaking free from the last ashes of shadow. It was such a simple admission, yet it resonated through the fabric of our very existence, no longer shattered nor hiding from the truth. Then, just beyond the threshold of uncertainty, the air felt lighter. A wave of acceptance wrapped around us, binding those pieces of love lost like threads of a tapestry finally woven back together. The moments would come in waves, fleeting and ethereal. Some would carry the weight of loss, and soon enough, others would float on the promise of healing. But we would face them together, Jeremy, Megan, and IAS, a family finally reassembled, and as the morning sun stretched its arms across the horizon, illuminating the new day, I knew we would weave our way through the intricate dance of memory and love, transforming grief into a stillness that finally felt like home. In that serene moment, emboldened by the chance of connection, I found my voice stronger than fear. We'll create new stories, Jeremy. Together, I whispered, knowing that this time, we would walk the path of healing, no matter where it might lead. Jeremy's smile widened, sending warmth cascading through the room, filling the empty spaces with hope. Together, he echoed back, and in that single word, we turned the final page, embracing all that lay ahead with an unbreakable bond. As the dawn painted the walls in hues of hope, I could finally breathe, knowing that no matter the hurdles we faced, whether it would be grief, love, or the weight of memory, it didn't matter. We would find a way to heal, find a way to remember, and most importantly, find a way back to each other. In that moment of clarity, I understood we were more than just the remnants of our past, we were the promise of a brighter tomorrow. And in that certainty, I whispered softly into the gentle dawn, we are not broken, we are becoming, and that moment ignited a certainty within my Bonisa, resonance of affirmations throughout my being, now and always, reminding me that even in the deepest depths of despair, we would rise together.